Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Spence. This is the News Desk, TSPN TV, and I'm here today with a special guest, Gene Mancebo, General Manager of the Amador Water Agency. Welcome to the show, Gene.
Great, thank you, Mike.
I know you've been on the news many times, and we didn't expect to overlap. We had an incredible show this morning of some of the directors. You have an incredible board, a very credible board of our local people who sit on the Water Agency board. And we had a wonderful outreach program this morning. And then you're also with the Water Agency. We didn't mean for that to overlap. We'd booked you weeks in advance. And we normally talk with Gene about the upcoming agenda for the Water Agency and the things that are in the news. And we have some different news that's come up again. You guys are always in the news. Water Agency this, Water Agency that. Right. It's great to always have people looking at what you're doing, and we can talk a little bit about the agenda. Why don't we do that first, and then we can address some of the different things that have been in the news. And it's great to have you on and be able to discuss that.
Sure, happy to. This is a rather light agenda, Mike, but a couple things that we'll be going over. One is the Comanche area grants that we have in order. We've received a little bit better than $500,000 in grants towards replacing some service pipes and also lining some old tanks that were, try to gain some life out of those. We're in the middle of that now. We'll be giving an update to our board on that. And also we've applied for additional grant funding to continue that program of replacing the service pipes. That's from the main to the home, basically, the meter box. Those all have to be replaced. They're in poor condition. And so we are going through that. Also on the agenda, we'll be talking about the gravity supply line, where we are in the process of getting our permits and getting that ready to move towards construction.
Right. That was the gravity supply line is one of the big issues in the news, and that was unanimously approved by the board recently, and I know that's moving forward. I saw it going out to bid. I saw it in the newspaper, all the details of the construction that's going to be taking place later this year, and that's coming up pretty quickly. I know there are a lot of ratepayer issues, and we can get to that as well. But you mentioned the Comanche issue, and I think people who have been watching, if you go onto YouTube, you can actually watch the Water Agency overview that took place this morning on TSPN, because it was really great. It outlined the Comanche area, the Central Amador Water Agency area, if I get this right, and then the CAWP, the upcountry. There are three different main ones, but there are a lot of separate areas that the Water Agency serves that aren't connected. So, for example, Comanche has the water tanks that you mentioned you were lining. Those are like old wooden tanks. I mean, they go off of wells and old wooden tanks out there, so it's very different than different parts of our county. And the gravity supply line has obviously, really been a big issue in the news. I know I attended a few of those meetings and took, 8 pages of notes. It was, but it always came down to one question, and who's going to pay for it?
Right.
And it's still the same question. Even when I read the stories this week, it's still the same question. How does that affect the ratepayers? And I know you've consolidated some of the rates, and there's a difference between rates and the actual loan and the grant money that's coming through, and all those things are different. It'd be great to hear some insight from you in terms of how that all works and to clear up some of the misconceptions.
Sure. The gravity supply line well, let's just mention it. It's a gravity pipe so that we don't have to pump water up about 1,000 feet out of the canyon, and so it's replacing a pump system that's failing. We were able to get about a 40% grant from the federal government to offset the cost of this project. Because of that, and because of not having to continue to pump the water, the electricity, as well as operating those pumps and motors, we're able to actually reduce the rates as soon as it's operational. This will just affect the upcountry customers. The loan and the loan payments come out of their current monthly bills, but we will not have to raise it because we won't have the power to have to pay anymore. So it's an offset. And in fact, once it's operational, we'll be able to save each customer about $3.80 for a typical residential customer per month. So it's really because of that savings that offsets it. But no other system that we have will be paying into it. It'll just come through the operational cost for the upcountry customers or the COP customers.
Right. I mean, the savings, obviously, for that gravity supply line, the power bill alone from PG&E, you're probably saving $300,000, I heard,
That's
per
correct.
year, and that may go up to $400,000, in the future per year, and those savings are being passed on. And I think that what people don't really, if you ever have the option, whether it be any kind of bill, to say, I don't want my rates to go up, to sign here. I think if somebody gave me the petition to sign, if I thought my rates were going to stay down, everybody would naturally do that.
Sure.
But they don't realize, most people probably, that a lot of these infrastructure investments and capital investments, really go towards savings in the future. And we've come to that point where this gravity supply line, it sounds like it's at that time when it really needs to be done.
Absolutely. I mean, these pumps and motors are now approaching 40 years old. They're unreliable. We've even had experts come in and tell us that over the next few years, maybe 5 years, if they don't get replaced or improved, we're going to see substantial outages, and we don't want that. We struggle with that from time to time as it is. So this will be a much more reliable system. It'll improve the flow. It'll also improve the fire protection area because we're going to be adding hydrants that'll come directly off of this gravity pipe.
I guess there are 4 different locations where those hydrants will be placed, mostly upcountry there?
Correct, right. And we went over that with the fire chiefs, picked out locations that would work best for them.
And the pipe that's in the ground up by Mace Meadow where I live, I've seen that red pipe. And to think that that's not a fire hydrant,
No.
It's just kind of a pipe that sticks out of the ground. I mean, I'm kind of concerned how much water is going to be necessary. I know they fight most fires from the air, and hydrants aren't always, the most critical part of fighting major fires. But every element helps in that type of situation. And since we're in that fire danger part of the year, and you think of our infrastructure up there, and any improvement fire-wise would seem like a good idea.
Sure, you bet. I think of those red pipes as oversized faucets. I mean, because that's about what they are. So we want to replace that with regular fire hydrants that they can use for fast fills for tankers. That's one of the purposes of those hydrants that'll be installed with the gravity pipeline. Right.
Well, the gravity supply line and how it affects ratepayers has always been interesting. The grant money that you mentioned is like $5 million, and I would imagine there's another substantial amount of money that would be required to pay for that project, and we're going to have to use that money. But why don't you explain to us, we have a few minutes before the break, how those taxes are taken to pay for that. And there was a pool of taxes and tax money that was already kind of allocated and set aside. Are these new taxes that are going to be paying for that extra portion, or are these already existing taxes that were in kind of a pool that you had set up when you consolidated the different agencies from the county?
Right. There are no new taxes. The agency receives a small amount of property tax money from each property throughout the county, whether we serve water to them or not. And the board uses those funds for different projects, different studies each year to kind of benefit broad-based areas. And this year, we're going to use a portion of that to help pay for the gravity pipeline. And that money is going to get reimbursed. What we'll be doing is a portion comes from rates, the offset from the electrical power, and then a portion will also be used to help pay for the project that when new customers connect, they are going to pay back money through their impact fees, a one-time fee, and that'll go to help refund this money that we're using from this tax funds that we receive. So that'll all get paid back.
So people, when they say the tax money is being used, it's actually money that was already in a pool that you, like a general fund of tax money that you were using for different projects that you can allocate to this particular project.
Sure.
And then it's being reimbursed, but you're saying there are no new taxes.
That's correct.
Not even for the upcountry residents.
No new taxes.
No
new taxes.
I'm reading your lips there. Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we got that straight, because that's an issue that always keeps coming up, and we want to make sure that we're going to come back and talk in detail about that. and about growth and how that new pipe affects that in the second portion of our news broadcast. But for the next minute, why don't we just cover yourself first of all before we come back and discuss in more detail. I can tell that you are you have an engineering background, and you were an engineer before you became general manager of the water agency. What was your background, Gene?
Oh, well, I graduated with engineering. I have an engineering degree, and I've been with the water agency in the engineering department for about 20 years. And then over the last few years, I've moved up to the general manager position.
So they have the right person in the job in terms of, I look at all the board members, and it's a pretty impressive conservative group of folks who sit on that, water agency board, all of whom have been elected.
Right.
And, because of their conservative fiscal positions mostly. And I know Rich Farrington was just elected by 70% of the vote, and he has a lot of very high fire concerns and a real proponent of that GSL. And it's just interesting to see, who's on the water agency board and what their positions are, and obviously who's general manager and who's running the facilities. And, you have your hands full. And when we come back from the break, I want to talk more about, how the growth issue affects, the size of the gravity supply line, and, how that might affect growth, and how it might be connected to serve, areas down country. And, that gravity supply line being a big change, is something that people are not quite familiar with. There's so many details. I mean, we've been looking at all these different details of it. It would be great to just discuss that so people have a clear understanding of what that gravity supply line actually, is going to entail, what it's going to look like and why, and the reasons for that. And we'll be right back after the break, so please stay tuned.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.